welcome back to another episode of the Exponential Files. This is a 30-minute, half-hour show about real estate and bringing you the best that EXP offers, the best and the brightest, people you wish you were, people you need to know. I'm Larry Lawfer, and I'm joined by your host today, Jim Lowenstern. Great to see you. And we've got a special guest, Eli Schaugh. And Eli is an expert in so many different things. We don't have near enough to time. But starting with, you're a success coach, and you have a program where you work in purely positive realms to help your students achieve. Talk a little bit about that if you could.
Sure, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. I do consider myself a purposefully positive coach because people are going to be motivated by moving towards what they want. And negative motivation it's a nice, swift kick in the butt, but is usually going to be very short-lived. I've had coaches of my own in the past who leaned heavy into the negative stuff, where they were kind of berating me and making me feel bad if I hadn't done something. And ultimately, there was very little trust in that relationship. And what I really found myself motivated to do was fire them. If you want to help somebody succeed, you need to be tapped into what they truly care about and keep things positive over time.
Well, I think one of the
So,
most
uh,
interesting things, I'll let you go to just a second. You said one of the most important characteristics of success was curiosity and being curious. Does that fit into what you were about to ask, Jim, or was it something
no,
totally?
totally different.
Okay. As usual. But curiosity is a key component, and it's something that real estate agents need to know while you're talking, while you're negotiating, while you're presenting. How does that fit into the coaching aspect?
Inside the coaching world, and I'll keep this very brief because I could easily speak on this for a couple of days. We created the company Success Coaching. I'm one of the founding coaches of Success Coaching in order to challenge the standard of the industry, because it's not a regulated industry. And a lot of people call themselves coaches and they're not actually coaching, they're telling. Coaching is about staying curious and learning about your client and helping them discover what's actually going to work for them. You cannot be the expert in somebody else's life.
Right.
You can't be the expert in someone else's business. So staying in a state of curiosity and engaging real time with another human being is how you can discover what's really going to make a difference, which is very different than what most people out there, quote, coaches out there are doing, where they're actually just telling you what to do. And if you don't do it or you don't do it their way, then it's your fault, which is not coaching at all.
So let's talk about success coaching a little bit. So uh, what I know is it's a division of EXP World Holdings. There's a number of success divisions, of which that is one of them. I believe Tony Robbins' son, Jarek, might be the president or the CEO of that group. And then
He
there's
is the
also,
president of Success Enterprises.
okay. And then there's success, is it, or maybe it's success coaching bureau. Is that all the same? And sort of
So there's a few
explain
different,
how it fits into the EXP fabric.
absolutely. There are a few different, I guess, LLCs within Success Enterprises. So I'll give you the short version and to the extent that I am able to speak to it. Back at the end of 2020, Glenn Sanford bought Success Magazine, which has been around for 125 years and has been the name in the personal development industry, and has included some of the most significant coaches and mindset development thinkers and writers throughout the last 125 years. When he picked it up, he realized there was a huge opportunity. Why just publish about how to help people succeed? Why don't we actually help them do it? And that was where success coaching actually came from. So we've been around for about 2 years now, because it started out early in 2021. And our job is to help people actually create, discover, define, and create the success that they want in their life and in their business. Connected to that is also Success Space, which is going to be about actually having physical locations in different areas throughout the country that is going to be a co-work space with a cafe. Every single one is going to have an on-site, in-person success certified coach so that people from a local community can come in and get live in-person coaching in addition to having a place where they can grow in their business and have a networking opportunity as well.
That's another good idea.
So, and success, is it coaching bureau? Is that something totally different? Like,
Uh,
confused
I,
on that one?
I don't really hear the word bureau very often, so I'm not sure where that's coming in.
Okay.
Um, so
Because
I
I've seen like a website where there's a bunch of top names, and I don't believe they're all EXP related. And then with success coaching, maybe they are.
Yeah, I think that I'm wondering if you might be thinking of the Speakers Bureau. There might be a
Oh,
Success
that's it.
Speakers Bureau. Yeah. So
That's it.
there's also representation through Success Enterprises of big name speakers,
Right.
um, keynote speakers, and so on. So that I
Right.
think that's what you might be referencing.
I was part of the original Success magazine. They also had they had that kind of thing going on as well. So,
Yeah.
um,
So there's some pretty cool people in there.
well, another aspect of you is the whole NLP thing. So, could you give us kind of an overview? I know that hasn't been around for a long time, and you just before we came on, I had no idea it had to do with relationships and marital, and then language came up out of. So, just talk for a moment about that.
Yeah, absolutely. NLP or neurolinguistic programming is probably one of the most misunderstood fields at this point because it's been described in so many different ways. So, the simplest way to describe what it is it's how to communicate effectively with yourself and with others.
Yeah.
A lot of it is based on the way the subconscious mind works, which all of us have and use. It's
Right.
just a part of our mind that we're not very aware of, but it actually makes up most of our mind. And it's responsible for you listening to me right now and sitting in your chair and not falling over, and all of those things are happening
That
at a
could
sub.
happen. We have
It
had that
could.
happen.
You never know. And then consciously, you'll suddenly be aware of it. Um, but it really all goes back to these two gentlemen, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, who decided that who was one is a linguist, the other is a computer programmer, and they wanted to study the way that people communicate. And they chose to study some of the most effective, profound therapists that existed at the time, many of whom come from the systems theory side of the therapy world in marriage and family therapy, before it was even called that. And by studying them and interviewing them, learned the models and methods of how to communicate to create massive change with very, very little effort. They also studied Dr. Milton H. Erickson, who's probably the most famous hypnotherapist of all time, to learn how he communicated so effectively at a subconscious level with his clients and patients so that they could have literally one conversation and experience massive shifts in their life. So by studying these people and learning the way they speak, the way they listen, the way they communicate, a series of techniques were essentially discovered to help people create change themselves and how to communicate more effectively, which can be used in a very positive way. But as is this, the rule with any tool can be used in a negative way as well, depending on the intention of who's using it.
Right.
So, in the Wikipedia article on NLP, it talks about, I guess in the beginning they were saying it could cure nearsightedness, common cold, psychosomatic illnesses, depression, phobias, tic disorders, learning disorders. That's a lot. And
It's a pretty hefty claim. It's a
yeah,
pretty
they
hefty
said it could
claim.
often happen in a single session. So that's pretty powerful stuff.
It is very powerful stuff, and while I can't speak to every single thing on that list, I actually can speak to most of it, because it's work that I personally have done. And some of it is remarkably in a single session, some of it's not.
Right.
It will usually
Right.
be advertised that way because it sells better if you want someone
Well,
to sign up for your
yeah,
training.
immediate
Um,
success, you know.
right. And
There
there's no
isn't
such
any.
thing. There's no such thing. What it really does is it helps people learn to think differently
Right.
and it helps people essentially get out of their own way. And I
Right.
can say, because I am a certified hypnotherapist, you can make significant change at the subconscious level in a matter of a single session. But for it to be lasting, there need to be some additional components. And typically, it requires someone to be at threshold, which is defined as their three specific pillars. The person has to recognize that something has to change. That's number one.
Yeah.
That it has to be now, which is number two, and it has to be them.
Who
If they
has to do
can't be
it?
responsible for the change internally, it's not going to happen or it's not going to last.
Right.
So there's a lot of that that's at the beginning. And then the way that the subconscious is able to change is different depending on the person and depending on the circumstance. I've absolutely seen and personally helped with overcoming of things like phobias, overcoming things like significant negative reactions to drugs that cause nausea, and that, like somebody who was on chemotherapy, I was able to help them so they would have a easier time dealing with that,
Right.
because they would get nauseous on the way to treatment even before they got there, because of the anticipation of it. So it can help with a lot of those things. And I'll say this also because it's very important since the subject was opened. Working in anything that would be licensable, like a medical situation or an actual mental health
Right.
situation, there's a diagnosis like depression or
Right.
anxiety or an eating disorder. Can it help with that? 100%. Will it cure it? Probably not, but it'll help a lot. But
Right.
you only can do those things if you're licensed. Otherwise, you're doing what's called malpractice, and you can go to jail.
Right.
Well, let's
And
talk about real estate agents for a
Let's talk
moment.
about that. Yeah.
Let's say there's a real estate agent that they're putting the work in, they're putting the time in, they're doing pretty much everything they think they should be doing, but they're not achieving the level of success that they're looking for. Can any of this be positive for a change for them?
100%. You want to talk through an example?
sure.
Yeah.
What might be something that either one of you is struggling with? I'll share a little bit about how it could be helpful.
Jim, you're the host. Jump in there.
Okay. Just I guess team building. But let's talk about that.
Team building.
How does one grow? The EXP platform allows you to grow an international team. You know, over state lines, of course, beyond what you ever would normally dream of. How do you help someone change their mindset from all I can do is grow a team in my backyard?
Got it.
There you
Well,
go.
one of the best tools that would be in my tool belt, and something that we teach to all of our coaches who are certified through success, is a particular skill called reframing. It's a wonderful way to address something like a limiting belief that I can only do this or I'm only capable of that, and to start helping somebody expand the way that they think about a particular situation.
Right.
So why don't we role play this, Jim? If you're obviously you've encountered this before, maybe you've dealt with it yourself. So what's the objection that you might want me to handle here?
Nothing in particular. I just I know
He's
there are.
wimping out. He's wimping out.
No, I'm not wimping out. I was going to
Yeah.
say there are agents that when you present a big concept, they retreat into what they're familiar with,
Mm,
and it becomes not so much a coaching or a consultation. It becomes more of an education, and they resist it.
So
yeah. So
can I jump in here too because Jim has opened up. Jim and I are kind of different people. We get results, but we do it from a completely different way, um, and I don't think that's bad at all.
no, not at all. Not at all. There's no one way to do anything.
Right.
And and it's because there's multiple paths to success. That coming right back to the beginning, what you asked me about coaching, I don't know what the right way is for you to succeed because how I do it is my way.
Right.
And what's made me successful is based on who I am, my resources, my personality, my willingness and behaviors and motives and all of those things. It might not work for you or it might not work the same way.
Right.
The what you might be rubbing up against though, Jim, is that a lot of people will become resistant when a couple of things are happening. Number one, they're encountering information that's unfamiliar, so it's uncomfortable. And number two, it doesn't feel like they have much of a choice in it. And that's where taking a coaching approach is going to be a lot more effective than a telling approach. And this is a lot of actually what I teach. And when you are presenting to someone about here's what you could do, here's what you should do, don't you see this opportunity? It's right in front of you. Just open your eyes. People start to put up a wall because one way or another, they feel like they're being pressured or sold to, or something's
Okay,
making.
so what's a better approach?
A better approach is going to be through asking questions, and that's where that curiosity comes back in. So let's say we're talking to an agent who is unfamiliar with EXP, and really all that they know about EXP is that a lot of people like to recruit. It's a recruiting company. That's what they think. It's their belief, it's their frame, and their filter for all things EXP.
I see your bold thing back there. So Keller Williams is there too.
It was there,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was at KW for
Well,
7 years.
yeah, I mean, they think of it in terms of recruiting. They think
Yeah,
of it in MLM. They
yeah,
think of it virtual.
yeah,
Oh, you don't have offices as a virtual company.
right.
All of these um, things that they believe are true, which are partly true.
So, and some of them are what are, we can, without going too far in a different direction, they've adopted what's called an idea virus. And they took someone else's suggestion and they adopted it as their own belief without having any evidence for it at all. Or maybe just enough to support it the way that they chose to frame it. So in those situations, or really in any situation that involves sales or agent attraction or recruiting or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, it's all some version of sales because we're hoping someone does what we want them to do and we're going to benefit
Influence
from
them.
that. And yeah, we're going to influence them. If you're doing it ethically and it's actually a win-win, you're going to have a much better chance of succeeding. So that's a good place to start from. It's not just about you. It has to be good for them too. Assuming that it is a win-win, just learning about what they care about, what matters to them is going to be the easy way to have the conversation. So you've heard about EXP, you've heard that yeah, all right, it's a virtual company, we don't have offices, and it's just this multi-level recruiting marketing scheme, blah, 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 blah. Great. You've heard that stuff. What don't you know about EXP that you'd like to know? That's a different way to go. Let's find out what the person might actually be interested in. But we could also just get off the subject of EXP altogether. You work in real estate. What's important to you about your career in real estate?
Mm-hmm. Show interest.
Show some interest.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I've had these conversations many times, so I know there's a few hypothetical paths that we could travel here. One of them is usually, well, I can make a lot of money. Great. Making a lot of money, that's important to me too. It's important to a lot of people. What's important to you about making a lot of money? What's that going to do for you? Now we need to keep pulling on that thread. We need to understand more because it's not just about the money. So now we're going to come up with something that's deeper. For a lot of people, that answer comes to, well, I'll have more stability. Great. What's stability going to give you? Well, I'll have more freedom. I can kind of do what I want when I want. Awesome. What's that going to give you? Well, it's going to give me the chance to travel more. That's really nice. Now we're not talking about money anymore. We're talking about a shift in their lifestyle. Well, what's the purpose of traveling more? So I can enjoy my life. Well, what's that going to do for you? I'm going to feel like I'm here for a reason, and like I can actually have an impact, and like I'm not just here to work, I'm here to live. That's really awesome. So what's the purpose of your life then? Well, I want to leave a legacy. I want to really help people.
So it gets into really deep existential
Right.
questions.
It won't be
Right.
the first phone call, probably.
It's never it's never the first answer. It's usually 5, 7, 8 questions in, and I'm not asking hard questions here.
Yeah.
In fact, I've used probably the same 3 questions and just kind of moved back and forth. What this is specifically called as this skill is chunking. That comes from NLP. And we're looking to help the person discover what they truly care about. Once we can have that
What was the word? Trunking?
Chunking.
Chunking. Oh, chunking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in this particular exercise, we're doing what's called chunking up to a level of abstraction where we find what someone is actually motivated by. So in this hypothetical, it's legacy. They want to leave their mark. They want to really make a difference in the world. From there, we just work our way back down, which is called chunking down. Well, what's a way that you can do that? What's another way? What's another way? What could you do to, and you start finding the answers. We're not talking about EXP. We're talking about someone's legacy.
Right.
So how can we help you? How can you create that legacy?
Right.
Well, I can make sure I help a lot of people. What's a way that you can help a lot of people? I can make sure that I'm, in my business, I'm really visible and exposed and people know who I am. What's something you could do for that would help with that? Well, I could make sure that it's not just my sphere, but people all over the country, maybe all over the world, know what I'm able to do. Nice. Is that something you can do right now? Kinda. Well, if I was able to help you do that specifically, get yourself to a point where you're exposed and visible all over the world, you can help as many people as you want and leave that legacy. Would that be valuable to you?
Would that be something you're interested in? It's awesome. Let me switch it to a real estate thing
Let's just
just seconds.
let's just finish the thought. Well, where do you go after that? So what are you going to do for them so they can have that legacy and that ability to change people?
Well, in this particular scenario, it would be fine if
By the way, this
yes.
is a hypothetical. So
This is, yeah,
the
it's absolutely
hypothetical
hypothetical.
answer is
Of course. And now I can say, because this is what I'm demonstrating here with going through this very quickly, is actually something I teach over 8 weeks in a
Right.
course that I have, about how to get in rapport, how to ask better questions, how to discover someone's real need and create value around that specific need that's unique to them, and then close to move forward towards the outcome that you intend, as
Right.
long as it's an ethical
Yeah.
win-win. That's the whole point of the course that I teach. So assuming that there's value, and I've asked that question and the person says yes, but how do you do that? Well, I actually work with an international company that focuses on creating high levels of exposure so that you can create the legacy you want, and all while
Yeah.
putting you at the front and keeping you in charge of your business,
Yeah.
so that you can build that.
Yeah.
Are you interested in that? I'm happy to help you.
Yeah. So moving it to real estate, that same scenario, something that many people are challenged with on a daily basis. You go in, you make a presentation, somebody says one of two things. Will you match the other person's lower commission? Or the other is, no, I want to go on at this level, even though you know it's too high. Both of those things you've got to deal with in some way, and you can in some way. Well, why is that important to you? Why do you need it? And you go down, and they're going to say, well, because we owe this and we want to do this, And but the curiosity is the thing, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and it's important as you're doing this as a coach. You have to stay in that lane of curiosity. You don't have the answer. In sales, you have to remain curious, but you also do have an intended outcome.
Right.
Different. So if you're on a listing appointment and you hit one of those two objections, which, let's face it, if you've been on more than one listing appointment, you've hit that objection.
You're going to hit it, yeah.
You're going to hit those. And in case this wasn't clear, by the way, from our introduction, I've been in real estate since 2009,
right.
And I've worked with a lot of different companies. And what's always made me so successful as a salesperson is being curious enough to find out what actually matters to my prospect, so that they then become my client.
Right.
When you get an objection like that, we don't know where it came from. It's possible that they've just had that sitting there waiting, and someone told them, no matter what, make sure you say this or ask this.
Right.
It might also come from they had a conversation with someone else who already offered it. It might be that they were reading an article 3 seconds before you walked in the door, and that was the one thing they picked up from it.
Right.
It might be that I said something during the consultation, and I'm going to keep using the word consultation because I do not do presentations. I do consultations. They are different.
How are they different?
Well, a consultation is curious.
that.
I'm learning about you. A presentation, I'm just telling you all about me. If I go on a listing presentation, and I'm sitting there talking about my marketing strategy for 20 minutes and you don't care, now I've wasted your time and you probably don't like me very much.
Right.
On a consultation, I'm going to find out what's important to you.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's neurolinguistic is what that is.
It is.
Is presenting or consulting. Yeah. You feel it on a visceral level. So it is
Yeah.
important that the words that you use.
Oh, the words that we use are very important. And it's how we define and perceive the world around us is based
Right.
on how we describe it. And even so, it's our best attempt to describe to someone else what's already going on in our own mind.
Right.
And this is the mistake that so many salespeople make. They hear a word and they think they know what it means,
Right.
but it's only what it means to them, not to the person who said it.
Right.
If you don't ask more questions to get the other person's definition of that word, you've already gone off in the wrong direction. And you're probably some weeks down the line going to end up using one of those phrases that I absolutely can't stand, like buyers are liars. No, they're not. You just didn't find out what they actually want.
Right.
And now you're blaming them for having not told you something that you never asked for.
Yeah. Right. Right. Wow.
And you speak about skills, not scripts. I think that goes along with the consultation, not presentation.
Absolutely. You can walk into any scenario with a script, and as soon as somebody has an answer that isn't in your script, you don't know what to do.
Or a
And
question.
unless you are a professional actor, which I was, unless you're a professional level actor, a script is not going to sound like you.
Right.
I went to school and have a degree in how to make a script feel real. So
Right.
other people believe me when I say something. Most people don't know how to do that.
Right.
Taking a person who just got their real estate license and handing them a script that doesn't sound anything like them and tell them just say this, not only will make them uncomfortable, but they're going to sound very unnatural.
Right.
Believe me, I know from when I was at KW and I trained people in scripts.
Right.
It's hard for most people because
Right.
they don't feel like it's them. They don't really want to say those words. So instead of saying what someone else would say, I think it's a lot more effective. And this is my entire business is based on this at this point. I train people in the skills of how to have helpful, powerful conversations, but you come up with what to say. And it always sounds like you because you have the skill set to do it yourself.
Right.
So a natural conversation as opposed to a script.
Right.
Always.
Right. And I think an interesting, because we talked about that earlier this morning, I think the interesting thing about a script, Chekhov or Shakespeare or something, that was a story with a beginning,
Yes.
end, and it's done. When you go into someone's house to consult or present, to consult, much better way to consult, if you're using a script, you don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what
Right.
the end of the story is. You're guessing.
There's
And
no way for you to know. And
eh,
if you don't get the answer you're hoping for, you're floundering.
now what?
Right.
Now what? Yeah. People will tell you if you ask them. If you don't ask them, if you act like you know everything, they're not going to tell you because you know everything. Why should I tell you anything?
Right.
Huh.
Eli, let's talk about your arc in the business, where you started, where you went to. You said you worked for a number of companies,
Yep.
and how does EXP work for you versus the other companies?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, so I've worked in 3 different states. I started out in New York, which is where I'm from. Then I had moved to Los Angeles, and now I'm in the Denver area. I'm still licensed in California and Colorado. I gave up my New York license years ago, which might have been a mistake, but frankly, I'm happy to just do referrals at this point in my career anyway. Um, so for me, working in 2 different states, having a national cap, I mean, there's no comparison.
Right.
There's none at all. When I was back at Keller Williams, my cap in Los Angeles at my last office there was $32,000 just at that one office. If I was also Keller Williams in Colorado, I would have had another multi-thousand-dollar cap. I now have a single $16,000 cap that covers everything I do. So I
Everything
can
and
sell
everywhere.
wherever I want. It,
Yeah.
it, it is a major financial advantage for me in
Yeah.
such a tremendous way. Also, I work from home. I'm happy to work from home. I've got my office set up here. Having a virtual company makes a lot of sense to me. I still, even though I live in Colorado, do most of my sales in California because I have a team of people there who I trust and I can depend on. So I'm doing virtual business anyway. I
Right.
don't need to have a physical office to go to. That would actually slow me down.
Right.
Okay.
It'd give you
Well,
somewhere to go.
that's
Yeah,
basically how the company was born. It was
Right.
born out of the inability of Glenn to go national and
Right.
figure it out with the KW model. That
yeah.
Right.
was that was
Right.
the inception.
Hey, Eli, how will people get in touch with you?
Well, that's actually really easy. Email is probably the most direct way. So it's just eli@success.com. So that's ELI @success.com. So that's the most straightforward way. If people wanted to learn more about what we've been talking about today and how to use, like actually learn and use these skills and apply them themselves, I've got this training that happens throughout the year, and the next one's actually starting on March 7th. So it's coming up really soon. The course is called Consultations That Convert. It's all about how to have more effective consultations where people will become motivated and excited to work exclusively with you. The
Right.
same exact skills apply to agent attraction,
Sure.
same exact skills.
Yeah.
And for that, you would actually just go to coachwitheli.com/consultations.
Excellent. It's such a joy to have you here with us and to share. Um, Thank you again for coming and listening to the Exponential Files. Next week,
Thank you, Eli.
Jim and I will be back, and we'll have more good questions. We hope. Stay curious.
Good guess.